All right, welcome back. And joining us now is Tony Arterburn, a longtime great friend and supporter of the show. And he set up DavidKnight.gold to help you to bring your gold home. That's, I guess, going to be kind of the theme of our show. We've got central banks that are repatriating gold and bringing it home. Tony will let you do this on an individual basis. Thanks for joining us, Tony.
Always great to be here, David. Good to see you.
You know, there was a great story. I don't know if you saw this or not. A guy in Kentucky, he found a gigantic stash of Civil War era coins, gold and other things like that. And so, you know, the gold was right there in the cornfield on his farm, had been missed for, 160 years or whatever. And 161, I guess, because there weren't any coins that were older than 1862. Just one of the types of coins that he had, they've recently sold at auction for $100,000. He has 18 of those. So that's 1.8 million right there. And he's got a lot of other stuff. They got a picture in this article of this massive stash of coins. And a lot of these things are in mint condition, and they're coming from very rare mints. And so he's already had this certified by the Numismatic Guarantee Company, and they've called it the Great Kentucky Hoard, and they've got all kinds of a list of all kinds of coins that they found in this thing. But that's one way of bringing the gold home, isn't it?
Well, it is. And step one, don't call the FBI when you find gold. I've heard people do that. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But there was that one gentleman years ago that had treasure hunters, and they thought they found the gold.
Yeah, that's up in Pennsylvania, wasn't it?
The FBI came in and took it.
Yeah, that's up in Pennsylvania, wasn't it? And
right.
The FBI came up there and they said, look, we got this. And they tried to do it above board. And then the crooked FBI comes in and they sealed off the area. And they said, we could hear them working at night for a very long time. And then after they get finished, they said, no, there's nothing there. Because they took
Well, there's a lesson in that, too, about the gold. And I've even bought gold coins from the Roman era. And the reason that they're still valuable is because they are gold.
Yeah.
And I think that's missed on a lot, just because they're old. Like, I've seen coins from the Roman era that are not gold, that are just the debased, copper coins, and they're not worth that much unless they're in great condition. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing with currency throughout history. It keeps its value with being precious metals, silver or gold.
Yeah, this would be worth a lot of money just on the metal basis of it. But again, this is has a numismatic aspect of it. They said got an 1860 one mint condition 1863 double eagle. They said would be an important event, but finding a roll of these things, and they weren't 1863s, they were 1862s, and just a massive over $700 gold that they found.
Wow.
So that's pretty amazing. Just the metal.
There are gold dollars. I think I've brought them up on your show before, just showing how they're little things, but they're worth about $200, which just shows you the total debasement of the dollar itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. At least that much that has dropped. But of course, it's not just this guy bringing it home or finding it on his home. As you when I was saying at the break, we've got a lot of gold that's being repatriated by central banks who don't want to leave this abroad. This is something that's been happening for several years, but it's really escalating now, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a headline up on Kitco. And because of the sanctions on Russia, again, leading back to that, the U.S. froze $640 billion in assets that were gold and Forex investments of Russia's. And that really scared a lot of the other central banks around the world. They're repatriating their gold from foreign vaults. That's a trend that is accelerating and surprising a lot of people in the precious metals sector right now.
Yeah, they're doing it because this article I've got here from Zero Hedge, 85% of the 85 sovereign wealth funds and 57 central banks said they think inflation is going to be higher. And yet it is really what's driving it is what you pointed out, the fact that we had this freezing of Russia's stuff. And then from a personal standpoint, what we saw with Trudeau freezing the accounts of people who were protesters and what I just talked about, where you've got people like Nigel Farage or parental rights groups that are getting kicked out, or Christian priests who's getting kicked out of their banking accounts because of their political or religious beliefs.
Yeah, you're giving me a pep talk now about being a politically exposed person. That's the part of the new AML rules. That's coming, and that's why precious metals and decentralized tokens are so important right now with the rush towards central bank digital currencies, and again, just crushing liberty with the overreach of these totalitarian governments on currency. It's more important than ever to understand what gold, what silver is, being outside of the system. There's a reason why these banks are repatriating. They don't like their exposure.
Mm-hmm.
There was a story, about a year ago, David, that the Vatican started pulling all their assets back to the Vatican. Like they started closing down foreign assets and their holdings. So I think again, you start looking at these sort of signposts on what these foreign entities are doing, and you'll see the volatility built into that. I mean, I think that's what we're witnessing right now is a major sea change geopolitically when it comes to the dollar, when it comes to finance.
Yeah, as you pointed out, they froze about half of Russia's gold and assets like that with this NATO movement. But going back to 2019, and I remember when this happened, Poland said, well, we're going to bring home 100 tons of gold. We don't want it abroad. Then Hungary, then Romania did it. Then the summer of 2017, actually preceding that, you'd had Germany start to do that. And prior to that, in 2015, you had Australia bringing in half of its reserves. Netherlands, Belgium have also done that, but it has really, really escalated. And, people are concerned, even the central banks are concerned about the London Gold Exchange and just leaving it outside of their country. They want to have it in their possession because, as you and I have always said, gold is real money, but it's also, if it's not in your possession, you don't really own it. If you can,
right.
And they're seeing this over and over again. And then you take a look at what is happening with the Shanghai Gold Exchange and these derivatives, the ETF derivatives. People are, that's you've talked about that many times, how that allows them to manipulate the price of gold. But it's also a very, it's not even a good investment from a standpoint of following the price of gold because it doesn't really track the price of gold, which I thought was kind of interesting. When I started seeing gold, I used to have money in paper gold for my IRA and paper gold and silver. And I noticed this is really disconnected from the price of gold and silver. What's up with that? So I started looking at it. I was like, no, I don't want that.
Well, it's totally disconnected.
Yeah.
There's something called counterparty risk. You got counterparty risk when you're investing with, and you're looking at to allow someone else to hold your money and back it up with their assets, supposedly that you can't see. So I don't like that. I like to, when I invest, I want to be able to hold it in my hand. I want to be able to possess it, whether that's gold and silver or real estate or even things like Bitcoin. I want to hold the keys. If I can't hold it, I don't invest in something that you can print.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's right. Now, speaking of Bitcoin, I thought it was funny that Britain is going to call their CBDC Britcoin. I had to do a double take when I saw that because I thought it was a kind of an odd. I guess I figured it's so close that people really won't notice. I think people will kind of scope in on that. It's better than Fedcoin. That doesn't really inspire anybody at all, but at least it's a better name. But same evil.
Same. I didn't know that, Dave. That's news to me. But it's really about branding, and maybe I can't see how anybody would confuse the two.
Yeah.
You got some central bank controlling digital currency as opposed to some decentralized finite resource like Bitcoin. That's crazy. The people in Nigeria certainly didn't.
Yeah, it was Prime Minister Rishi Rich. That's a spoiled little rich kid who's now the prime minister. He's the one who coined that term, Britcoin, as a nickname. That's not going to be the official term, but that's the way they're going to sell it to people. They're CBDC.
Well, they're very clever with their nomenclature, aren't they?
Yeah. But when you look at what is happening, they made it very clear. At Davos in January, CBDC is going to be the future of money. But then they talk about how they're not quite ready for it just yet. But at the same time, we see a competition that is developing. There was an interesting article Brian Shulhavi had at healthimpact.com where he's talking about how we see the global, the geopolitical divisions between NATO and the U.S. and Europe and the Five Eyes. They're on one side with their current system the IMF and the Bank of International Settlements. They're on one side, and then you got this rapid escalation of people who are rushing in to the BRICS, which was Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It was only about 5 countries for quite a while, and they were doing their own thing. But then it rapidly jumped to 19, and then within the last 2 months, it's gone from 19 to 40 something. It's more than doubled again, and they're still not going to. It's still about a month or so away before they have their next meeting, and all these people are clamoring to get into this to get away from our system of slavery, financial slavery.
Yeah, 2 major points coming out of that. One, they're meeting in August to talk about linking a currency to gold, which is monumental. Mm-hmm. But the other thing, and it's not covered as much, is that President Macron out of France asked the Prime Minister of South Africa if he could also join or at least attend the meeting, which is huge. And you go back a few months ago, Macron also visited China to make sure that France wasn't associated with the United States' stance on Taiwan. There's a major geopolitical shift going on right now. And you talked about the Five Eyes. It's again, the BRICS isn't going to save us. Right. Don't start cheering for that because the evil U.S. hegemonic dollar dominance. I don't want that, but I know what's going to come out of this deal with the BRICS and China and the surveillance state as well. It's just a different side of the coin. Mm-hmm. But that's a huge story that you see Macron wanting to attend the BRICS summit. Yeah. And I think that's going to be more and more countries. I mean, you look at the headlines. All I did is I typed in on Bing, BRICS August, just BRICS August. And the headlines are, can the BRICS countries break the U.S. dollar? The new world reserve currency will kill the U.S. dollar. These are the headlines off of Bing and things like Reuters. BRICS currency, the opportunities and the pitfalls. BRICS explores creating new reserve currency. I mean, these are just all over. Just by typing in BRICS in August for the meeting, it's massive. Mm-hmm. I think there was Zimbabwe is another headline in here. They're going to be asking to join BRICS. So this is something that's accelerating rapidly, David. I can't stress this enough. I mean, we've had to wait a long time for these massive political changes, but I look, to an example of like what happened to the Soviet Union at the beginning of the 1990s. It's just all of a sudden it was gone. Gorbachev comes on television on Christmas Day and it disappears and breaks into 16 pieces. These are things that happen in our lifetime. And as the technological age, it's just rapidly advancing. Since the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, which they were goaded into doing, I'm not a Russophile. I'm just saying I know the history behind that. Yeah, that was our side, the NATO, the West wanted them to do that. Since that time, we've lost. What was it? I did the calculations the other day. It was like we had 60% of the world's transactions in dollars prior to 2021, and just right prior, I think 2020. And then in 2022, it's dropped to 46%. It's declining rapidly every year now. And now these headlines popping up. I mean, we weren't talking about the BRICS nations 2 years ago. That's not right. Like this. I mean, it was in the periphery of things I discussed, but nothing like this. And there's a coordinated effort to get away from the dollar. And if you read further into that article about gold repatriation, there's a frustration at the end of the article on Kitco where these central banks are saying, well, we still don't see any alternative. We're pulling our gold home. We want to own gold. We're trying to get rid of the dollar and get out of dollar holdings, but there is no alternative. That's what this summit in August is all about, is having an alternative. That's the term, Tina. There is no alternative. Creating an alternative will further accelerate the demise of the dollar being the world's reserve currency. And I'm not saying this to be doom and gloom like the dollar's going to zero. I think that the dollar's going to digital. To me, these kind of moves that our so-called leaders or our overlords are making, to me, it looks like a controlled demolition. You wouldn't be making these moves if you wanted to keep the world's reserve currency status. Somehow, I think this is baked into it. So we that are paying attention need to see what our options are. That's right. We can't stop this. There's no political movement in the U.S., David, that can stop the dollar's demise now as the world's reserve currency. I think that is already that horse has left the barn. So to speak. So I think right now all we can do is just see where we're going to land. how we can protect ourselves. And there's a couple of different things, protecting your wealth against inflation, loss of purchasing power, but more importantly, what you talk about, and that is being outside of the system. We have to have a parallel system of value, and history shows us that that's precious metals.
That's right. And of course, that's a big part of what this whole BRICS thing is about as well. It's not just, well, they seized this money from Russia and they could do that to us as well. But they understand that once this system that they're pushing so hard gets in place of digital currencies, and it's going to be a global system, they've been very open about that, even openly talking about, well, it's going to require, said the IMF, it's going to require that laws be changed and maybe even constitutions be changed in various countries so that we can have this central bank digital currency. They understand what a pervasive system of control it is, because they want to do it to their own system, their own people as well, in China and in Russia. But they want to escape that complete control system for themselves, in the same way that Trump would talk about how 5G, if the Chinese have the technology, it's going to be used to control everything that we do. So we've got to have our own independent 5G. He wants to control and watch everything that you do, just like everybody else in Washington wants to with 5G. But we don't want the Chinese doing it. So the Chinese are going to do the same thing. The Russians are going to do the same thing. They want to control and surveil everything that their people do, but they don't want to be caught up into that thing as well. And so that's a lesson for all of us. Because they see these control tactics coming and they want to get away from them. And it really is a big geopolitical realignment that is happening right now, isn't it, Tony? I mean, just like we saw with the unification of Europe, you pointed out how slowly that's happened in the past. It was Bilderberg met for the first time in 55, and then in 56 they talked about having a euro. And it took a very long time for them to accomplish that. First, they had to create trade zones and other things like that. And then they created some political structures. But then the glue, of course, that's going to hold all that stuff together is going to be some kind of a common currency. And that's why they're trying to glue this, UN, NATO, World Economic Forum, these multinational corporations trying to glue all that together with some kind of a global digital currency. That's what's coming.
Well, if I recall, Trump's answer to the Chinese and 5G was 6G. I think if my memory serves me, he said, we need to start talking about 6G.
Yeah.
I was noticing, too, there was I think it was a finance minister from India that was talking a couple of weeks ago and said, talking about central bank digital currency and what the premise of that was, and say, well, in real time, the governments, the treasuries could control whether and whether you could buy ammunition or, or a firearm,
or food.
Yeah, right. Anything that they would deem, or fuel, that they would say, well, you can't buy that this week. That's what this is all about. Again, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. These are not your saviors. A lot of people are talking about, well, the BRICS they're going to have a new reserve currency. You're going to link it to gold. Well, I hate to break it to everybody. We already have a gold standard. It's called gold. It's around the world. It's universal. I find this argument about whether currency should be backed by gold or what the government should do. The government shouldn't be in the currency business. This is how we got into this mess in the first place. And we have a fake world built off fake money. It creates some real monsters.
Yeah.
It's funny too, David. I read a lot of history of gold, but I also go back to just the story of the origin stories of communism. And you're seeing this today. The communists always need gold. They always need money. You always got to get, they loaded down Trotsky. He was a newspaper reporter in New York, 1917, 1918, and they loaded him down with gold and sent him to Russia. Same thing with Lenin. Warburg, Max Warburg, was the brother of Paul Warburg. He was the head of the central bank in Germany. They loaded down Lenin in a sealed boxcar with millions of dollars in gold. So it's the hypocritical part of the commies and the Marxists. They always act like they don't want money, but that's truly what it's all about, is the control of wealth and the power. They want that. And so, again, this is something that we look at history. They're going for the gold. They're going for the wealth. And they like fiat currency because it allows them to create a fake deep state. But at the end of the day, they're always looking for the value somewhere. And that's why it's important for us to understand how to be outside of their system.
Yeah, they're not anti-materialist. Their followers may be. Their followers may have bought into that idea, but no, they just want everything that you've got. That's the Marxists. They're the kleptocrats that are out there trying to steal everything from everybody. Yeah, that's an interesting story, and I always thought it was funny. I had somebody send me a link to where I could get the movie. I haven't gotten it yet, but they actually did a movie with Ben Kingsley about Lenin. Being put on that train, sealed train, going from Switzerland to Germany to start the Communist Revolution. They gave him $10 million in physical gold to go do that. And that movie had Ben Kingsley in it. I thought, that's interesting. I've never seen that here. It's not even available in the U.S. They don't want you to see that in the U.S. You can only get it typically in European format, unless it's kind of a bootleg version of it. So I thought that was interesting, that story they don't want told. Of the central banks and using gold to put the Russian communists in power. But of course, that's they've always been behind that type of thing, and they are always the ones who push war, push revolutions, and all the rest of the stuff, because that's how they make their big bucks. It's just it's not doing the fees and everything from us that they do on a regular basis.
Well, these are bankers' wars.
Yeah,
that's what the 20th century is a slaughter pen of bankers' wars. And, I talking on my show, even going back a year, I talked about U.S. allies, allies that we've had in the past, people that we leaned on and people that we supported, like Saddam Hussein, or Gaddafi, and these people that are dead now. And I was thinking about those really pathetic pictures.
Or Noriega,
of Zelensky.
Right? Take
What's that?
Manuel Noriega.
Or Noriega,
right? Who became
absolutely.
He's a strong man. It's like, what does that mean? It's strong man. Had to take him out, said George H.W. Yeah,
that's exactly right. I mean, be careful when you're a U.S. ally. I was thinking, and the pathetic pictures of Zelensky at that NATO summit in his outfit, the Babylon Bee had a great headline that said, man attends party, thought it was a costume or something like that.
That's what it was.
Regrets wearing a costume.
He's just standing there by himself. Everybody else is all dressed up, and his wife's in a very nice dress because, she shops at Paris and spends, what was it, $40,000 in an hour or something. But, she's meeting somebody, and he's just kind of standing there by himself looking up. That's a really funny picture.
Yeah, it's funny how things can change very quickly. Stay humble. But that guy certainly wasn't. And if you know about bankers' wars, if you know about what they prop up and what it brings, but that imagery really just looks to me that's going to be the dollar soon. Like I just think about it's just nobody wants it anymore. I think that's going to happen. Not tomorrow and not next week, but that's coming. I mean, it's just. When there's an alternative, it's just going to be left out of the party because of its behavior. Yeah, I think it was the defense minister of Britain said, "We want to see gratitude." Like they're just like, "Why are you not grateful?" That's what happens. You get somebody like a Zelensky that you prop up and you put up there and you tell him he's the most important person in the world.
He's definitely not grateful. I mean, he got very angry with these people and they push back on it. But Biden says, "Well, we gave you more than everybody else combined." And it's like, yeah, we noticed, and. You got other ministers there pushing back against him. He's demanding that he's become this petulant child. Of course, I think he always was, but he's not even trying to hide it anymore. Not a very good look, not a very wise move to make in that group of people, and a really dangerous individual, a little megalomaniac, who wants to escalate the war, and he doesn't care what happens to his own people or the rest of the world. It truly is amazing. But, well, what's going on at Wise Wolf Gold? Tell us a little bit about what's happening there.
Well, as you can see, the spot prices of gold and silver have gone up. Silver's up 4% over the last month. Gone up since we've been on air. Gold's at 1,961 Luciferian Bankster notes per troy ounce on the yellow metal, 1961. Silver's at $24.73.
That's kind of surprising to me because with all the talk about, I hadn't checked the price of it, but with all the talk about it, the fact, we've conquered inflation. You saw that, right?
I was going to bring that up. There's two headlines that I love to find contradictory headlines. That's one of my favorite hobbies now. But you see Drudge, it's got a smiling Ben Franklin on the $100 bill. Yeah. It was like inflation eases, Fed emergency over. But if you go to just a couple links over when I do my search, there's Market Watch. Says gold and silver near 1 month highs as U.S. dollar weakens.
Yeah.
Well, which one is it? Is it we got a great dollar, inflation stopped, or is we've got a weak U.S. dollar and gold and silver up? Well, I'm going to be betting against the Drudge headline as I usually do now.
I don't think people are buying the PR release out there. I think they're going to put their money where they think things are actually going, which is they're expecting more inflation.
Well, there will be more inflation. Yeah. It's just mathematics. I mean, again, 80% of all the dollars created in the last 48 months, and you've got the that's another thing is dollar velocity, right? You've got dollar velocity and the strength of a currency is based off of how much there's demand and how much is units in circulation. We created this massive amount of units, but we're losing the demand, and it's not it's very subtle. It's a percent at a time, and it's going down. So I think the real money is on what's going to happen to commodities and the shift away from the dollar. So what I'm looking at, David, is just continuing getting supply. Right now, there's a little bit of ease. It's never going back to the way it was before 2020. I don't see how it will. But we still got supply. We've got pretty quick turnarounds right now. If you want to place an order, we don't have a minimum. You can go to DavidKnight.gold if you want to get some physical precious metals. We'll help you. I've got Kinsey placing trades for me and helping customers. I got a great team here in Branson. I've got my location in Denison, Texas, and my son Houston is helping me. He's 18. He's learning the business and helping me there.
That's great.
So I'm kind of floating back and forth. I'm in Branson right now. But we have Wolfpack, and that's another thing that's growing every day, and we're getting more and more people. More people that we get, the stronger that we get. And so I just bought yesterday. I told Kinsey we bought a lot of the 10th ounce silver pieces. I'm trying to get people more fractional silver, just for trading and bartering and things like that. We've got a lot of pre-1965 coinage in great condition that's going into the Wolfpack packages. And then I offered all David Knight listeners, and this isn't valid anywhere else. It's just David Knight. If you upgrade or join Wolfpack, I'm sending you a complimentary silver dollar. If for any reason you don't get one, please email my staff and we'll get you your silver dollar. But I've got, about 70 left.
Wow.
I think we had about 30 people join last week. So I got about 70 left. So if you'll go to DavidKnight.gold and hit join Wolfpack, go check us out there, because that's a great way just to join and let us buy your metals for you. You will, I think, again, my cancellation rate's so low. That's just, I think, a testament to people liking their packages and the variety.
Well, it's a great plan, and I really do appreciate what you do for us with a special offer just for our listeners. And always the support that you've given us has always been so kind, and we really do appreciate that. And it's great to know somebody that you can actually trust. And I've known you for a long time, trust you, and it is like last time you were on, we talked about how these people were taken in by this site where they thought they were buying, I think it was crypto of some sort. And they were hustled. The site, it was just a dummy site. I mean, you got to know who you're doing business with. So it's very important. And so we really do appreciate what you're doing. That's a great offer for people. Setting up a regular savings program is such a powerful thing. And I think people don't realize the value of that, but it's especially true to have something that is going to be not only a hedge against inflation and bad economic times, but against this ruthless plan of surveillance and control that they're trying to impose on us. I mean, that to me, that is still the biggest aspect of these metals. So thank you for doing that, Tony. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. And again, you can get to Tony with DavidKnight.gold that he set up, and that'll take you to Wise Wolf Gold, where Tony can give you a hand with that. Thank you. Have a good week. We'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. See you then.
Thank you. All right. We're going to be right back, folks. Stay with us.
In a world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. You're listening to The David Knight Show.